Welcome back, everybody. This is episode 14, and I figured I would take a little bit of a break from the intensified thinking stuff from our last episode and do a little bit of catch up on what's going on with this trailer that you probably see in the shop a lot. I haven't really touched on it too much. There's also the fenders for it that take up a lot of room in the shop, and I'm really getting tired of tripping over those and having this project take up so much of the space from the Typhoon. And Rob's been cooking along on the Merlin, so we really need to get this trailer put together and set up so that we can mount that engine and start fitting systems. And I'll take my scribe and just do some pretty rough marks. Again, this is still just for weld positioning, so at the moment I'm going to be removing the paint that I so carefully applied previously in these positions and quite liberally around it, and it'll be reapplied later. The fenders inside from front to rear are 69 inches. And I've taken a measurement on this side of the spring pack to that side, and it's 62 1/8. The tubes that I'm going to be welding here are 2-inch square front and rear, and my total difference is, well, it's not quite bang on, but I'll end up with a gap at 69 1/8 of an inch if I use a 1.5 inch pipe as a square up against these guys. Now, another thing to check was to make sure that both sides were the same and everything's nice and square now. And partially because this whole assembly here is brand new, and it was welded here in the shop. So now we can just go ahead and use that 1.5 inch spacer. It'll give us a little wiggle room, and it gives me a mark that I can work with as the boundary for that 2-inch square pipe. So that square pipe will go from this edge aft and opposite on the other end. So we'll end up with a very good measurement within an eighth of an inch gap. So I don't want to get any tighter than that because the measurements on the inside of the fender actually varied between 69 inches and 69 1/4 inches. So we're smack dab in the middle of that, and everything should come out quite well. So I've got everything cleaned up. I've got all the grinding done on the ends of the pieces and the mating surfaces where it's going to contact the frame of the trailer. Again, these are the supports for the Merlin itself, so I want to make sure everything's nice and clean and we get good strong welds in there. All the paint's been removed, the corrosion's been removed from these to make sure that we have nice clean bare metal on there. And I'm just going to go ahead and tack them into position, make sure that they're sturdy and in place, and then I'm going to recover my clamps because I'd like to use them to position those small 2x2 steel tubes that will be used to support the fenders on the trailer. So we'll get this done and then we'll move on to mounting and setting those up, and I'll show you exactly what I do with the little makeshift fixture to make sure they're true and correct. So there we go, that's just a couple tacks. Everything will stay in place now. I will weld them all the way around. There's going to be a lot of weight and a lot of power on this, so I'm also going to make sure that I'm going to manipulate the trailer because it's still fairly light and I can jockey it and twist it around. I'm going to go ahead and I'll do all the welds, run the proper beads in the best position possible, just because my vertical welding isn't as good as my horizontal welding, and I'd rather have really nice, really good penetration and a lot of strength in this guy. So what I'm going to do, I'd like these tubes to be positioned at the bottom of the frame. So I'm going to just use some of the steel that I've got here, which is more material for the remainder of the structure on here. And I'm going to start by clamping these up into position, just so I've got a nice level surface, and then we'll position them off of here because that's where all my measurements were taken. So hopefully that makes some sense. So that's tight, and now these guys can sit here, and we know that it's nice and square to the frame itself. Okay, so everything's in position. I'll give that a couple tacks and we'll move on and do that to all 4 positions. So that all worked out pretty well. Got some decent welds in there. I have to go around and clean them all up and do that stuff. But on the very last weld that I was doing, I ran out of shielding gas, so perfectly timed. I'm on to fenders now. I'll fit the fenders to these fender mounts here. And what I'm going to do is, the original fenders are a little bit rough in that area, but I want these to sit down over those bars, and I'll have some nice stainless steel hardware that goes through here and into that welded pipe here. So to do that, I need to cut this lip down, and I've just marked it. It's that mark there. I've just marked it so that I can cut it out. So I've decided, because the other one's sitting just a little high, I think I'd like to drop the fender down another inch. So I've got to cut off from the frame, which is a 2x3, and I'm going to use just that as my guide. Pretty simple stuff. So I'm going to go 3 inches instead of 2, and we'll trim it out to that. And I'll adjust the other one once I see how I like this one. So that'll save a little bit of space, guys. That 3-inch drop on the fenders is much nicer than the 2. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust that other one. All in all, this thing is super rigid. We've saved some space on the floor with those fenders up here now. And I'll design a mount system and support gusset for the middle, as well as the tongue for the next step. But for now, we can get to doing some planning about how we're going to mount the Merlin to this, and order up some leveling jacks for it. Until next time, guys, I've got a bit of cleanup to do here, so thanks for watching. Hopefully this one didn't strain the brain like the last one did, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Cheers.